I'll start with just a little background about who I am, kind of who I work for, and what we do every day, just to set the groundwork for this digital product experience we have with Innovatemap. I work for a company called JLL, and we are a third-party commercial real estate services firm. So we are a Fortune 150 company. We have, I think, 90,000 employees worldwide, so just a massive company. In Indianapolis, we have about 55 employees. And what I do day to day is I lead what's called our tenant rep team. So we work with companies to help them align their culture, their branding efforts, their recruitment retention efforts with their office space. So, for example, we actually helped Innovatemap locate, find, and identify this space, negotiate the lease, move in. So along with that, our space has kind of shifted in the last few years to becoming more than just a place for butts to seat, but really to be something that's more inspirational, that reflects the brand and the image of the firm. So that is how we got to what we identified as a problem. What I'm talking about today is what we call Spaces. Spaces is a workplace inspiration hub for people to go to get inspiration for their office space. A lot of people can't put words to their thoughts or maybe visualize their thoughts. So that's the platform that we created that we'll kind of launch into. So we're going to talk about a few different stages of the product lifecycle. And again, these are in my words, not in like the right maybe technical words for them. But the first stage that we went through was the ideation stage. There's a picture here of the Hubbard and Cravens in Broad Ripple because that's literally where the idea was kind of born. Andy Kennedy, who works at Innovatemap's also a personal friend of mine, and he and I were sitting together and kind of dreamed up this idea together about 4 years ago. Once we got through the ideation stage and knew that there was a kind of purpose or meaning to this whole platform or idea, we went into what we called the grow stage. So that was socializing it internally. We had some proof of concept. We had some buy-in from customers, clients. And so really we needed to elevate that internally within JLL to help folks understand what we were trying to do. And then the last stage, which is kind of where we're at today, is what we call the go stage. So we've done 3 years of a workspace contest with different applicants that have joined the site. And so now we're going national with it, and JLL is fully supportive to help it go. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about each of those phases, and again, would love for questions after. So the problem came from a few different things initially. We would meet with prospective clients or people who wanted to change their space, or they'd want to be in a more inspiring space because they had an old, boring office space, and they couldn't really understand what that looked like or what that meant, or even really more relevant examples of what that meant. They could get on the internet and search a cool office space, and it would show Google's headquarters in California, but that's not as meaningful if you're in Indianapolis. The second issue is we had companies who were extremely proud of their space. The one we're standing in is a great example of that. They hit such a small audience of people who could see their space because they'd only see it if they actually came to it. So they didn't have a platform or a avenue to show off their space and really what that space told about their company brand, their story, and who they were. And then the last issue that we saw was the fact that there's these vendors that you would need to partner with to help you create the space, right? So the architects, designers, the general contractors, the furniture vendors, and there's not a kind of neutral source for those. You could try to identify or find their website, maybe SEO to find designers, but there wasn't a neutral spot where you could, at your own pace, take in the work and the quality and then be connected to them. So what we did in the first year was we said, okay, we got this idea. We need to get people to this site. So first of all, we have to create a site. And so what does that look like? I have no idea how to do that. And so with $2,000 and hopes and dreams still intact, we built a site on Squarespace, and that lasted us almost 3 years, amazingly. So very little initial investment. We knew we needed to just get something up so that people came to a central spot to experience what this was. So we had the site. That was great. We had a website. That's awesome. I think we're legit now. We have 0 spaces to show off. So how do we actually get people to submit and show their spaces? So we decided that a contest was a great way because people love winning things. And so we created Indiana's Workspace Innovation Showcase Awards, is what we called it, through Spaces. And in the first year, we rolled it out and we had 64 companies that submitted throughout Central Indiana. So that like completely blew us away. We got through it. We're high-fiving as a team and then start getting phone calls asking when the awards event is. Like, awards event? We didn't plan to have an awards event. What are you talking about? Obviously, you can see that everybody won. So we started scrambling to pull together an awards event, which is like painfully hard to do when you're not. That's not the way I think either. So anyways, we pulled off an awards event. The cool thing about that was we had 120 people that attended the event, sold out. Of the 120 people, I think 50% of them were, call it C-level executive leaders of companies, people that were highly engaged from the folks that had applied. What that told us was that the concept was validated, that people care about this discussion, that this topic, there's a lot of interest in it. And so that was really rewarding to us. So what I call the hangover phase is after that award show, you go, now what? Now what do we do? It's clearly something where there's interest. Was it a 1-year phenomenon? Now, can we not get to people next year? But we had content on the site. We had 64 different companies that now folks could go to. So this is the point where we engaged initially with the Innovatemap team. We had to understand what the bigger vision for this was. We were pretty confident that a $2,000 Squarespace site would certainly fail at some point. And we thought, based on the initial buy-in locally from the concept, that there was a much bigger plan for this. So what we did is we had an initial engagement with them and our team from Chicago, who's our kind of corporate marketing team, just to kind of dream, take into account, other digital products out there, other, you could think of Pinterest or Houzz or some of these other platforms that are similar. We're just doing that for commercial office space, not for, housing or interior pictures. So we dreamed, but then we also put kind of visuals to the dreams to help kind of sell this vision internally. So during the grow stage, that consisted of going through, these are a few different pictures, imageries of the slide of like what this bigger concept is. And that's basically a true hub for this inspiration piece where people can go, they can, again, sort through at their own pace. This is one of my favorite views in the lower right-hand corner. You could be a tech company in Indianapolis, but you don't want to be limited to just tech companies in Indianapolis. So you say, we're less than 50 employees. So we don't want a 4,000 employee office design view. We want somebody who's relevant to our size, but we want to look at New York, Chicago, San Francisco, and be inspired by images that are outside of ours. So you can actually curate your own, imagery from places all across the country. Lots of other ideas and big ideas. We didn't limit this to just what's the very next step, but what's the biggest, path that we could take here to go sell that internally. So we all come out of this and just have a ton of excitement, a lot of clarity, conviction, vision for this. And we take it up to sit with our team in Chicago, which included our CEO of the Midwest, oversees, about $1 billion in revenue, but is market focused. So he's focused on the markets that he oversees. The CFO, head of marketing, and then I think there might have been somebody from the local marketing team up there as well. So we go up there and we pitch this great idea and we're like, this is the vision, what it could be. And they love it. Like they are totally bought in. They're asking all the right questions. I'm kind of looking at my Innovatemap friends like, this is good, right? I feel like they're buying. So we walk out of that meeting and get an email like 2 hours later. And he's like, hey, this is just exceptional. And I was like, okay, here's what we need from an investment perspective to take it, to build this thing. This is like the idea. We got to build it. And he says, yeah, that's awesome. Not for us. I'm like, gosh, we're doing everything here. You're giving me all the buy signs, and this is like my coworker. And he said, listen, the issue is that I don't know how that drives value for me and the P&L that I oversee. And so that was a good awareness point of this concept of value. And I think part of the reason why Mike and the team asked me to speak today was I do work inside a huge organization. And when you talk about getting money and buy-in, both financially and from a visionary standpoint, you have to constantly draw it back to what value is this adding to the organization. And I think we knew that, but I'm not sure that we focused on that, right? So as we went through this growth stage, so this would have been like January of 2017, we hit the first roadblock, took a step back and we say, okay, we're not with the right person inside the organization. So we did a little homework, kind of asked some internal questions. We have a digital product board, or a digital board rather, of directors that oversees all of our digital initiatives as an organization. And by the way, JLL has coined itself as being a technology and data company that happens to specialize in real estate. So now I started to get equipped with this language and ammunition, if you will, to kind of use against them to tell them why they need to invest in tech. And if you guys haven't figured it out, I'm in sales, so I'm always looking for that angle to close somebody. So we navigate to the digital board, kind of socialize this. I mean, I have told this story literally 100 times inside my organization. And so what we came back to was value. And we said, hey, you're a technology and data company that does real estate. This is a technology platform that is going to accumulate a ton of data as you get more people who are on the site. I mean, you think about right now we have 150 companies just in central Indiana from just 3 years. And you start to scale that out to other markets. Now you have thousands, tens of thousands of companies on here. You have the number of employees, you have their square footage, you have their square footage per employee, like actual metrics that you can help to drive more value to your customers, to your clients, to prospective clients. So we really started to repurpose and lead with the value for the organization. And it was genuine, authentic. I don't think it was, fabricated in any way. So as we started to navigate that, we journeyed, in and out of the digital board. I was set up for I was on 3 different digital board schedules to talk about this. I got canceled 3 times in a row. And so I get an email the week before, hey, don't have time for your slot. Sorry. One time I was on a conference call waiting to be plugged in, and I was on for an hour and a half, and then just got a text like, hey, not going to have time for you again. I'm like, this is super thoughtful that you guys will leave me on for an hour and a half and dump me. So then all of a sudden one day, so we're attacking all these different angles. We're going through marketing, we're going through digital, we're going through tech. Talked to the CTO at one point. And one day we get a call from the head of kind of new digital products, right? And we've got heads of everything. Like, somebody should be able to focus on this. And she calls us up and she said, hey, and this is a multi-$100,000 investment at this point to see it all the way through. And she calls up and she said, hey, you guys are good. Let's get the paperwork done. And I was like, we went from getting dumped on like 4 board meeting conference calls to just, we're all good now. So anyways, we got the opportunity then to really invest and kind of build this product out and see it through. So the last stage that I'll talk about in this journey is called Go. And so this is really the concept of bringing, and this is going to kind of slide through some different slides here of the engagement that we had with the Innovatemap team. But this is taking that product, and again, we had the visionary stage, but this is like starting to say, okay, what could we do? What should we do? Let's actually put some rigor to that from a business perspective to make sure that we are actually driving value back to the organization, and really try to hit the ground running with an awesome digital product, digital experience. And I was blown away, and I'm not here to give a commercial for them, but I was blown away of all the different thoughtfulness of things that come into building a tech product. And I told you I'm not a tech guy, like it's not my background, but there are so many things that I would have just never thought about. Like I kept saying, let's build a website. And they're like, stop using that word website. This is a tech product. And one of the best analogies that I could finally wrap my head around was the analogy of building a house. They would always say that they're an architect for a house. And so if you're going to build a house, you don't just hire the GC. And I built a house, so I know this. If I would have hired my GC, my house it'd be built structurally, but it'd look awful. And so the architect, it's their job to think about every single way that the house is used and lived in and purposed, all the way down to the details of how the windows open or how the lighting is. And maybe you don't do all the things that the architect says. You could do 3/4 of them, but you know how you'll do those in the future because you've designed the house in the beginning the way it should be built. And so that helped me kind of wrap my head around like what's their use and purpose, and how does that play into just somebody just building us a website. And then so from then till now, it was probably a 6-month period or so that you're seeing some images actually of the new site here. So we've now launched this new site. JLL is the huge cheerleader and fan of this. It's like the baby in the industry or in the organization right now. And it's getting rolled out to 4 markets this year. I'm looking at my team, Mary and Alicia over there. And then they want to roll it out to 10 to 15 next year. We're kind of beta testing other markets this year, 10 to 15 next year. So it's been an extremely fulfilling project. It's been a journey. There's been highs and lows, no doubt about it. But we're super excited about the spot that we've ended up at. So we talked a little bit about, again, this is important to me and important to, I think, anytime you're innovating inside a big organization is outcomes. Like what outcomes do we drive out of this? So from an organizational perspective, JLL sees themselves, and I think really tries to solidify themselves as not just a brokerage company or a services group, but a thought leader within the space that they're in. And providing folks with a valuable, meaningful product to help them make better decisions, more informed decisions plays into that. So that amounts to tools. We talked about the data, and then this whole resource for vendors to connect. Like not many people are thinking about connecting the vendors. They're thinking about what do I need to do to just get my job done, get paid, and move on. And our thing's more creating a better experience for the clients. From a product perspective, this was from a lot of vision, a lot of brainstorming, but we're excited about the 3 different personas that we have, which are exhibitors, people who have space they're proud of, that want to show it off. So this provides that platform for them to do that. Onlookers, which is folks who are needing inspiration, who don't know what inspiring office space might or would look like. And then vendors, a place for folks to go on there and show off their work and showcase their work. So you see kind of this organic collision or connection that's on the website where people want to be there. They're not forced there. We're not pushing them there, but they're organically there. And then lastly, personally, I think this is important. It wasn't the goal. It wasn't something that I set out to do, but I think by being a part of this and seeing this through and pushing it through, like I'm viewed as a thought leader in the space with inside the company and with inside of Indy as well. And then I've been pinged for a lot of different bigger kind of initiatives or input on boards and that sort of thing because they saw maybe the durability that I had to resist all the organizational challenges and ninjas that jumped out at me at different times. So there are obviously personal benefits anytime you're innovating inside a big organization. So there's kind of 2 things that I thought were the most impactful. And this again, I just kind of breezed through what was basically a 3.5-year period of time. There's a lot of highs and lows. There's a lot of times where you're not sure that it's going to happen or you're discouraged or whatever it is. I think I always carried a deep conviction about the purpose and the meaning of the idea and what the value was. And that helped carry me through a lot of the way. Certainly, through a lot of the valleys. I've got an unbelievable team, Mary and Alicia, Melissa. We've got, a handful of people who have really come around the idea to help see it through and to be excited about it too and pick us up. And lastly, I think it's so important, again, to know that the innovators are not, in my opinion, they're not the C-level people. They're not the CEO. They're not and I'm not saying they can't be visionaries, but I think the people who are on the ground that are most connected to the clients or the product or the customers, they're the ones who see the opportunity to innovate. They're the ones who can identify the problem. They're the ones who, in my opinion, you should be constantly looking to for innovation because they know firsthand. They're kind of first responders. So I think, again, that I view myself as somebody who's more boots on the ground than a visionary kind of, corporate person. But I think that encouraged me to say, like, we are really the ones who should be informing upward, not upward informing downward. So yeah, with that, I breezed through it. You guys can feel free to visit the site at some point. We're extremely proud of it. It's growing pretty significantly now, but yeah, good. Spaces in a nutshell.